Guru Nation, welcome back to another episode. It's always a special episode when a member of the community comes on. It's even more special when a member of the community who you don't know, by the way, Calvin, I just followed you, but who you don't know,
I got
okay,
you. I'll fall back.
reach out on your live stream and says, "Hey, like I watched your videos. I got a job as a coordinator because of it. It was something like that. I can't find the message, but something like that.
Yeah.
And Calvin, this is like why I love to have you on because your
Mhm.
story is very relatable to Guru Nation. There's a lot of people out there who are overwhelmed with how they're going to get their foot in the door. And let me just tell you, I know we've been featuring a lot of our students, CRA Academy, CRC Academy
Absolutely.
students. We've had a lot of success stories. This is not, Calvin has not been in any of our academies. So it's
No,
even
no,
more relatable for you guys. All right. Like there's people out there doing it with the academy, without the academy, dropping out of the academy. It doesn't matter, guys. The variable is you. And you're going to get to learn Calvin's story and you're going to see why he was able to be successful to get his foot in the door. So, welcome, Calvin. Thank you for coming on.
Hey, Dan, thank you for bringing me on. I was actually very shocked that you even responded back to my first message because I asked you, I was like, do you think a fresh college grad that's a science major could even have a glimpse of a chance at clinical research? And you was like, yeah, I believe so as a coordinator. I was like, okay, that's all I needed here.
Oh,
And
I
so
saw I gave
I
you
started, I
specifics.
started just, yeah. Once I heard that, I was like, okay, I have a little bit more motivation. Let me see what I can do on my end and put myself in that door. I just need an interview. That's what I told myself. Just let me get an interview. I can
That's
do the rest.
cool. And we're gonna get into exactly how that happened, but like,
Yeah.
what you came out of college? Did you know when did you first like realize clinical research is even an industry?
Okay. So I came out of college. I was pre-med throughout college. My goal was to be an orthopedic surgeon. I wanted to work with like athletes and ultimately be like their physician. It was always been a goal of mine because I played sport throughout my life.
Ah, okay,
But
good.
man, I graduated during the pandemic. Probably one of the worst times to graduate. A 2020 grad. Very. I was
That
grateful
would
that
have
I
been
graduated.
bad. That would
Yeah.
that in
You know what I'm saying?
retrospect, that would be a bad year to graduate.
It wasn't the best year to grad. Mentally, it was draining on everyone. Imagine. Then I was in a position during the pandemic. I started studying for my MCAT. You know, it was just a lot all at once. I graduated pretty well, magna cum laude with a 3.8. So I was feeling
Wow,
good. Yeah,
really?
with
That's
yeah,
awesome,
with
man.
how
Where'd you go?
North Texas,
Okay, cool.
UNT, University of North Texas, either way.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty good school out here in the Dallas Metroplex. And so I felt good when it came to my grades, but that MCAT is, that's a battle itself,
I took
especially
it,
during the
man. I
pandemic.
took it. I have similar story, like pre-med dropout. Luckily I got my bachelor's, but yeah, that MCAT's tough. I took it
Yeah, it's
once. I
tough.
got horrible, like 40th percentile. The only part I did good was the writing.
Yeah,
But
you must be a good writer.
I was okay, but the rest, no.
Absolutely. So I took it. I did okay. I did fairly okay from what on my standards, but competitive level when it comes to med school nowadays, I didn't feel like I could truly compete with some of the high top scorers.
Wow.
So I was battling a lot of like, okay, I need to find a new place to live. I'm graduating school. I don't want to go back home. I need to get into med school. A lot was all at once, and so I was like, is med school and this future track that I'm trying to get to, is this actually feasible for me? I was still, should I take this MCAT again? Ultimately, I was battling the idea and it just took a lot of times. I'm a faithful guy. I'm a Christian. So I did a lot of prayer throughout this whole process after I graduated. And I just started coming to a consensus that I don't think I'm going to go into med school anymore, but I need to have a plan because I need to tell my parents and the people around me how am I going to move forward and support myself and
That's a
my
tough
future family.
conversation, Calvin.
Absolutely, because they put a lot into my pre-medical career so far. So I had to have a plan. Luckily, I had a family member that introduced me to clinical research. And it was something that, first of all, I never really knew about. I think of research as what a scientist with a lab coat under a microscope. all day. Doesn't sound that interesting to somebody. But he was like, this is clinical research. It's a little bit different. And these are clinical trials through drugs or even technology like biotech, which ultimately later I'll tell you about that. I want to kind of get more into that one. But he introduced me to it. And I was like, man, okay, how can I get more information? He's like, just go online. Everything's on Google. I'm like, okay, but yeah, but I'm a college grad. How can I truly get more information? He was like, man, you never know. Go on YouTube. Cause he always told me that jobs always want experience, but you don't have an experience. So you need to take your time out to really go research what you're gonna say and know the terminology. I know you bank on that. You gotta know that
Man,
terminology.
what else do you have if you don't have experience? You have your tenacity, your willingness to learn, which says something to the potential employer, your hustle, your willingness to work, your
Yeah,
willingness to net. You still have a lot. Experience is just one thing.
that's true. And then that's what I saw. So I took my time. I went on YouTube, found you. And I
Yes.
think that that's the greatest thing I could
Like
have done for
immediately
myself.
found me, or I gotta know for myself immediately, or you had to like scroll through videos and then I came up.
I'm not gonna lie. I think I typed in clinical research or facts about clinical research and your name popped up.
Okay,
You had
good,
just
good, good.
videos lined up and you put out so much content, like it's inevitable to find you, in my opinion. So once I found it, man, I just started diving in. I know the first thing, I even have my folder just says clinical research with everything
There you
I've
go.
been studying and everything.
By the way,
And
that
I,
alone, I know you got hired, but that alone, if you took that to a job interview, that says something.
yeah,
Like, it's not everybody who does that. And so, just for those watching, I'm trying to keep this relatable for the next
okay,
Calvin
man.
out there. There's somebody watching, probably in, I don't know if it's in Dallas, but somewhere they're watching. They're saying, okay, what do I got to do? I got to listen exactly what Calvin did.
Yeah, and I plan that everything that I did, I hope everybody does it a little different because everybody's different and we're all in different areas. But yeah, so I just started learning more and more about clinical research. I bought your book, you know, because I know
Thank
you
you.
every video you would speak on the book, and I was like, of course, this video, that 5 hour video, um, but of course, it says a lot. But I know there's more in that book about clinical research, and I need to know that because like I said, I don't have any experience, so I really need to know it. So I bought the book and I was just incorporating both the book and the video. And I just started to just live, breathe, and eat clinical research. Like I work out a lot, and I work out for about 2 hours in my ear every day, clinical research, your video, and I just be working out.
Wow.
And that's just what I did. And when I'd come home, when I'm falling asleep, I'll just keep it on and I'd fall asleep to it and wake up to it on my TV. Just so I'm just starting to feel what clinical research is. So if I get in that room with them, and I know it'll be very limited interviews that I get because I don't have any experience, but I know that I'll feel confident in the things that I know. And so ultimately I did that. And every day I would just write new things and I would take it slowly. It wasn't like a quick process, obviously, to really study a 5 hour video. It's not something you can just do in a couple of days or a couple of weeks. This took me a few months, it would
I
say.
should be writing it down like that. I mean,
Yeah,
that takes time, but that's how you learn.
yeah, I was really writing it down. I'm big on Quizlet. That's what I did in school. So I did a couple Quizlets. I made a couple of certain like major big points like the phases, site selection visits, and the four major visits and all that. So I put a couple just flashcards, made them for me, and ultimately I would just every day I'll just find one page or maybe one section that you did. You know how you broke it up into each section. And I would say, I'm going to study that for this week, or I'm going to study for that for 2 weeks, or whatever it took for me to
Wow.
truly understand it. And I just kept going at that for real.
That's awesome, Calvin. I mean, so how long did it take you to like feel confident? Because this is where people are this is where people differ. This is where you separate the wheat from the chaff. There are many people who wouldn't go as far as you did.
Yeah,
And unless they get lucky, they're not going to get the same outcomes. And there are also those people who don't realize how much effort they have to put into it. So
most
you're
definitely.
out here showing people exactly the amount of effort it takes to get in with no experience, but just a great head on your shoulder, a great attitude from the time I'm here talking to you and on Instagram here and there. So how, like, talk about your confidence. Are you a naturally confident person, or were you hesitant about applying until a certain period of time?
I would say because I was diverting from my lifetime goal of being a doctor, I was hesitant. Initially, it was just such a hard decision for me, especially I feel like my family put so much into me becoming this doctor later on in life. I was like, I feel like I'll be disappointing them in a way, even though I'm making a career for myself, but still it's taken away from what I wanted to do initially. But when I started researching clinical research, it was so fascinating. It to me, I'm a science guy, I'm big on it. So it's such a fascinating career, and I what I think is not a lot of people know about it, and it's so troubling that it's like, man, this thing has been running for years, and you tell me that these people don't know. There's a lot of undergraduate students right now that they can't get into med school, they can't do good on the MCAT, and they go into something else. They go into real estate, they go into some business, or they change their life completely, and I know that hurts them because they never learned about clinical research.
Yeah.
And so I'm glad I did have a family member that could put me in that position, but not everybody does, you know?
No.
And then there's people like you that maybe if they typed in clinical anything, your name would pop up and it could change their life ultimately. I
That's why
wish
I
they
started
had
doing the
that.
biotech stuff, man. That's why I started reviewing biotech stocks, because I'm trying to catch people who are interested in biotech, at least maybe from an investment standpoint, because I'm interested in that too. And I'm hoping that maybe like 1% of those will go down
Yeah,
the rabbit hole of clinical research when they see the other videos I have.
most definitely. And I would say the biggest drive is because ultimately I took about 6 months of my life studying for the MCAT, and that kind of instilled a different type of studying drive in me.
Yeah.
And so when it came to studying clinical research, I used everything I was learning from studying MCAT into that. When it came to
Yeah.
writing stuff down, using flashcards, living and breathing it. I remember watching Khan Academy videos for or organic chemistry tutor for when it came to MCAT. So I just used that same process of when I studied for this because I
OChem
was like,
killed me in college, man. You're bringing me back.
oh,
OChem
Ken,
second
wow.
semester is the hell, like
Okay,
almost
too.
like hell.
Oh
OChem
man, it
2,
was
OChem 1, I don't know how I survived. OChem 2, I think I had to retake it. I was
brutal.
awful, man. Awful.
Brutal for anyone.
Yeah.
Brutal for anyone for sure. But ultimately, as I started diving deeper more into it, like I said, I really started to enjoy it. And I saw it was an actual future for myself. I'm a man. I want to be able to provide for myself, the people around me, and ultimately my family. And
Hmm.
so I said, okay, I need to make a career for myself that I can do these things in. Clinical research can give me the assets. I can do that. One day I'll be able to build a home. One day I'll buy a car or have kids, you know. I need to have all those things planned out. And I'm only 23 years old,
You seem like
but
a Tesla guy. You strike me as a
uh,
Tesla guy.
hey, I'm not. I'm a Mercedes AMG guy.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Oh, oh,
Well,
that's my
they'll go
official.
electric at some point too.
Oh man, but Teslas are beautiful, and Elon Musk is doing an amazing thing with those
I
cars.
just figured Gen Z, you gotta be Tesla guy, but okay,
Yeah,
AMG, I give you that. That's good too.
yeah, I love the AMGs, but that's way in the future. But
Yeah.
dream car for sure. But yeah, so I really just put my foot in and was just really striving to get into this career. And I would say about 3 months in is when I started feeling like comfortable after I started learning. Because,
Mm.
like I said, it's not a quick process for you to really grasp all this information. They ask you something about site selection visit. You got to know what is happening, all the
Yeah.
documents, like the 1572 form that you kept iterating. You know, you have to
Yeah.
know these documents, and they might ask you. You don't have any experience. They might test you. And I was always wondering if they test me, I'm gonna be able to answer, regardless if the answer might not be completely correct because I don't know because I'm not in, but I'm gonna give you an answer and feel confident in that answer.
I
And
like
so
that.
I had that mindset, and I'm learning from you that confidence. You always banked on it. I even watched some of your interviews with. You did one interview with a lady that was in your academy, and I remember how to answer questions. The tell me about yourself is the most important question I feel like when it comes to these interviews, and that is a question I practice so many times,
Hmm.
and I would incorporate um, what I did. So right now, since I was on the med school route, I started working as a medical assistant, but it was just for a clinic. That's what I do right now, and I'm about to transition into clinical
Yeah.
research. And so there is some similarities to medical assistant to like what you're going to be doing in CRC role, but it's how you say it and how you can twist it a little bit. We use electronic medical record database and clinical research. They use source and EDCs. In a sense, it's all the same, taking information and transcribing it into another electronic database. So when it came to that question, I would be able to branch off of it a little bit more than just the average person that was just a medical assistant and didn't know how to just flip the two. And so I
The
would learn that
framework
from
is
your
the
video.
same. The
Yeah.
framework is the same. So did that question come up in the interviews? Like, tell me about
Um,
yourself.
yeah, tell me, that was the first question.
So tell me about yourself, Calvin. How did you answer that?
So tell me, because I knew you would ask this. So first thing I started off with, I gave them my educational background, told them that I was a biology major, BS, minor in chemistry, graduated with this. I told them I graduated
I
3.8.
like
I
that.
felt like that was
Started with your
credible.
strengths first. You know how many
Yeah,
people this speaks to confidence. They start with their weaknesses first. Big no no. Big
yeah,
no no. That was good. You start with
absolutely.
your strengths first. Okay.
Started off my strengths. Went on a spiel on that. In the moment you're kind of speaking more and more. Then I started. So whenever I first graduated, I worked as a lab tech, and it was a contract job, real quick. But ultimately, you can learn something from every job you get. So I took something from everything. So I was a lab tech. I started branching off on certain things I did in the lab. COVID was heavy around that time, so we did a lot of, instead of just really just saying I work with COVID, I worked with infectious diseases. I would use different words that would kind of pull, because I mean, some of these trials that we run are going to be in diseases, chronic diseases, infectious diseases. And I would just pull the things that I found similar into clinical research. And so I told them that there were certain protocols that we ran when I was a lab tech, when it came to the PCR samples that we ran on the samples that they gave us, whether it was hair or maybe some STI samples or anything that they gave us. And then the biggest thing with clinical research coordinator is that direct patient connection, what I got from the medical assistant role. So I said I then took a transitional role as a medical assistant, because it would then give me more patient care. Like I could interact with patients, I could provide a more therapeutic response for them. And ultimately, I was working under a physician, a provider, or a PI, if you flip it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
different ways you can kind of spin what you're saying. And that's what I would do. Anything that I did, I would tie it back to clinical research. So they would always hear a reason, like, you don't have experience, but you might have some credibility in what you did.
They hear
And
that okay, you may not have the experience, but you at least know the lingo and you know the
yeah,
concepts, and you're not waiting for them to ask you questions to prove that. You're just starting out with it.
I'm
I
starting. I
love how
wanted to
you did this,
command.
Calvin. You should write a book
Yeah.
on this, Calvin.
I feel like you already did.
No, no, not on this.
Yeah, no. I mean, ultimately, I would love to help anybody, but as I started doing that more, how did I finish out? It'd be in the moment. I think I went on the biggest spill I went on was when they told me, tell me about yourself. I wanted to give them everything that I felt confident in, ultimately to kind of just grab a hold of that interview and not lead them asking too many questions that
Yeah.
maybe I might not know. And
Hmm.
so I would really just start telling them that. And then I let in, hold on, I think I even wrote it down.
You
I know I
gotta,
wrote
while
this.
you look for it, let me tell the Guru Nation, you gotta this is why you start with your strengths. You gotta captivate the audience. If you start like boring or mundane, or even worse, if you start with your weaknesses, they're gonna tune you out. The person interviewing you, or maybe a group of people, they're human beings. Like, they get distracted. I know, because I'm on the other side of that table interviewing people a lot, and it's really that first minute I could tell, like, okay, that first minute, this person actually has something here. Whereas with others, you can tell right away in the first minute, may not be this person. Like, and I'm a human being. Sometimes I just tune them out after that point.
Yeah, first impression, most definitely. But yeah, I found it. So biggest things you talk about in your videos, I feel like, is regulatory source. You always
Yeah.
switch from two to two, and that's the biggest thing in clinical research. And so, like I was telling you before, I tied that electronic EMR record with source, and I banked on it. And I kept really talking more and more about that. And I feel like that was drawn them a little bit closer with that. I highlighted that. That was one thing that I knew that I'm going to say a lot about myself and strengths and whatever, but I'm going to highlight something major when it comes to clinical research that just really sets me apart in this interview. And then, I mean, ultimately, the MA role had me working with a lot of different types of patients. So there was some tests that I would run that were like with cardiology patients, with diabetic patients that I could kind of spin as metabolism and endocrinology, stuff like that. And I would also do some tests in my role that did they work with neurology, the nerves, tests for like neuropathy, which is disease in like your hands and feet, and that diabetic patients will have. So I would say stuff like that that would kind of just put things together of that I'm working with a lot of different ranges of patients, a lot of different type of chronic diseases. I've seen it. I
Incredible.
haven't done clinical trials on it. Yeah, but
It's
I've seen it
incredible
a
how
little
you
bit.
did that. You're like a magician with the interviews. It's not just the
I
knowledge.
tried
It's
to.
see, I'm trying to unpack like exactly what you did, and I'm seeing what you're doing, and people listening can hear what you're doing. It's hard to articulate what you did. Very sophisticated strategy. Probably nobody coaching you. It just came natural.
I mean, so some of it did. Like I said, I did have a family member that kind of did. He's in the field, so he did say some things. But biggest thing for me, he told me my preparation is everything. You know, so
Mm-hmm.
he was like, if you prepare like you've been doing this for 5 years, you're gonna feel like, and they're gonna see it in you.
Yeah.
And
And you
so
know
that's
why
what I
that's
just kept
important?
going.
People are listening right now and they're saying, yeah, right, Calvin got lucky. You know what? It's not about like the reason the employer, they already know from Calvin's resume that he doesn't have experience.
They
Why is
know for
why is
sure.
he still coming to the interview? Because they
That's what I
need
said.
people. There's a shortage of researchers. So the fact that Calvin took the time, has the motivation, the ambition, took the initiative with nobody telling him he has to do it. The fact that he did that is worth way more to that employer than what you've learned. It's just because they're going to teach you that stuff anyways. It's
Yeah,
the
they
fact that
are.
you went out and did it, it shows them that you're committed. The worst thing an employer wants is to hire someone and then that someone discovers what research is within a week. They say, I hate research, I quit.
Yeah.
Well, you just cost money and time to that employer. So they want like someone like Calvin committed, wrote a notebook. Did you bring that book with you to the interview?
I mean, it was in my car, but yeah, it's probably like 20 pages worth of just like, man, this is one section of what you
Wow.
did,
See, they would have been
another
even more
section.
impressed with that than your answers.
The, I think it's the GCP
Oh,
certification
and
I
you
got
got
online.
certified.
Yeah, I just did. I feel like that was another stepping stone that you have to do. You tell me that you can find some things online that are free, and
Free.
I'm all about
IATA,
free.
GCP, NIH protecting human subjects only like 30 bucks. So you get GCP free, IATA free. Everybody's
Yeah,
gonna ask you for the links now, Calvin. And then
I got them.
NIH protecting human subjects. By the way, are you on LinkedIn?
Yes, I actually just got on LinkedIn.
Okay,
I
good.
wasn't at first. I was just majorly just doing through Indeed. But now I got on. I'm about to start revamping my resume and everything.
So I'll put
Even
Calvin's
more.
link underneath in the show notes. Or do you want people to find your Instagram or your LinkedIn?
Both is fine with
Okay,
me.
I'll put
You know,
both. I
yeah,
like
both is
that.
fine for
Both.
me. Yeah, most
So
definitely. I'm
So how many applications did it take? Like how many interviews did you get? Were you one for one, like 100% successful? Like your first job interview, that's the one you got hired, or did you like get rejected?
okay. So like I said, my drive, it's kind of crazy. So every day, once I felt comfortable, I was applying to maybe 25 to 30 jobs a day on Indeed because they would just always pop up. So anything I saw in Dallas or anything that was remote, because COVID is still kind of around right now,
Yep.
I would just go ahead and apply. Even if I saw 2 to 3 years experience, if it says CRC, which is not the only way, because there's research assistant, there's clinical trials assistant, which are other avenues as well. So it was those three that I would kind of bank on. The clinical research associate, it's not really likely with somebody that doesn't have experience, but ultimately anybody could take a chance on you. So I wouldn't bark anybody down for that one. But I was looking for that coordinator position or that research assistant or that clinical trials assistant. And I was applying every day, probably 20, 30 jobs. If I didn't see anything new, I would just wait it out. And on Indeed, that was my platform applying. I didn't really use Glassdoor or LinkedIn because I really wasn't on it. So I was on Indeed. Indeed will I made sure I did the assessments. I don't know if they helped or not, but I did the assessments when they came up just so they could pass off my application. And on Indeed, I would send them a message. After a few days, I'd make sure I would send them a message, just tell them a little bit more about myself, just to, hey, this is me, this is what I do. My resume is very concrete things, but I'm gonna spin a little things that I'm probably gonna say in the interview too, but I'm just gonna tell you right now and see, and I'm not gonna lie to you, the ones I send a message to, those are the ones that reached out to me.
Yeah, because it's related to
Yeah,
the fact of that I brought up earlier about you putting in the work to learn this stuff. It's related to that. It's like its cousin. You're taking
yeah,
more time. Nobody's telling you to do that. It shows that you're committed, you're motivated, you have a passion for it. Not many people are gonna listen, like when they're trying to learn a new subject, not many people are gonna listen to that at the gym. Like, gym is for music, but the fact
yeah.
that you're listening
I
to
was
that
That's all I
shows
listen
me you're
to.
motivated. Working out's not easy. You're doing two things that are not easy at the same time.
Yeah. So that's all I did, man. I mean, and I just feel like that was main time because I had worked. I was working as an MA, so I couldn't really listen to your videos then. And so I feel like that was the most ideal time for me. I mean, we all have different schedules, so find a time that works best for you. I would say ultimately, but I would just say if you really want something, you just have to dedicate your time to it,
Yeah.
plan yourself out. I know I wouldn't say isolated myself, but I took some time away. I mean, COVID is kind of rampant a little bit still, but I took some time away from maybe some friends that I could kind of distract me while I was kind of researching clinical research until I felt that I was more comfortable that I can get in this interview room and I could secure a career. Because this is not a job, this is a career for people. And I want it to be my career. So I went about it that way. I want to make a lifestyle in clinical research and grow. Ultimate goal, I would say right now, as an associate. It could grow to project manager. There's so many avenues of clinical research. I hope everybody's
Site
listening to that.
owner. You want to join
Yeah,
the club, site owner?
oh my, I think ultimately the
The
only thing what
easiest and the
appeal.
hardest job you'll ever have in clinical research, depending on
Yeah,
the year.
most definitely. So it was so many avenues. I was like, I've I I have a confidence in me as well. I got that through just being myself, being in school, knowing that I could graduate pretty good in school. I felt like that I could study for an MCAT regardless of how the score didn't come out for me. I still had the drive to do it because some people get discouraged to not even study
Hmm.
for it and take it itself too. And so I said, I can take all those things in me, use the work ethic, my science background, my love for healthcare itself, because ultimately clinical research is just making all these drugs and these biotech instruments just more efficient for people, making it more cheaper ultimately. So take that drive and just put myself in there and see what happens and pray to God. That's all. That's the first thing for me, but and just get in there. And right now I'm in there. I'm very excited to see where it takes me because it's so much bigger than I can only imagine. I start in about 2 weeks, and I'm just gonna go
Congrats.
from there.
Was that the
Yeah.
first was that the first interview and that you got
Oh,
hired?
okay. So that's what you. So yes, it was, and that's a testimony itself.
Yeah.
But the
They don't want to
lady,
let you get away.
yeah, they didn't want to. That was the first one. That was the first interview that called me, and the lady and I went through 3 interviews. So it
Wow.
was a 3-step process. Imagine that. So I remember it was like one of the regional managers or whatever, based out in Austin. I talked to her. I feel like she really did like me. And the one thing she did tell me is that whenever she got into research, she had no experience. Not and once I heard that, all the stress from my shoulders, 'cause that was my first interview, just got off a little bit. And I said, okay, we're kind of relatable a little bit. All right, let me talk to you how I can spin some things now. So then I went to another interview and another interview. And ultimately, I feel like they wouldn't waste their time interviewing me too much. So hopefully I get this job. And so I was really happy about that. I got
Is it
some
for
other
like a big
calls.
site or is it a CRO or a sponsor? Who is it? Without
So
naming them,
this
but like is it a site, CRO, sponsor? What kind of company?
so this is a site.
Okay.
Yeah, this is a site. So a pretty nice site. I even looked up the company itself to see what type of research that they're doing. You know, I told you they're working in gastroenterology, so
Huge area, huge growth area.
yeah, yeah.
Microbiome
So
research is huge. I'm doing a study on that right now with the Dr. Hazen.
most definitely, I know they got some things approved for like Crohn's and ulcerative colitis.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that finished the whole pivotal trials and everything. So
Wow.
that was big to hear. And towards the end of the interview, those are the questions that I asked. Because you know, always ask the question after the interview. Do you have any questions for me? Yes, I definitely do. I have them written down already. So the three questions I asked them, I believe I asked them the team dynamic. I started saying things that I knew about clinical research that they haven't asked me, but I just wanted to let you know, like, I know about this. So I said, okay, I know the CRC works under the PI, but what is the team dynamic with other CRCs? How many studies will they have? I know there's going to be multiple studies. And she would answer that how she wanted to. And she told me about the process and how it's more of a collaborative effort from all the CRCs and nobody's really left behind, which was great to hear because I have no experience. So I'm like, okay, I need, just in case I don't want to be left alone, that I can have some, I can look to, hey, can I get some help? And ultimately, the PIs were very like sociable and very comforting people. And so I love to hear that. Then I think the question that she liked, it was when I told her, I asked her about what trials had finished the process of the phase three, which ones are out in the world right now. And she said it was like nobody's really asked that question. And so that's when she started giving me some of the drugs and everything they've used that are out in the world right now. And she was just like, okay, that's a pretty good question. I would say maybe that's a question you should ask. It just seems like you're engaged in what they're
Passion
doing.
tells you,
Yeah,
yeah, it tells the interviewer that you have a higher purpose than just a job. Uh, because you're gonna work harder if you have a higher purpose. Like when the going gets tough, if you can face your North Star, like if it's truly your North Star, you're gonna go for it, as opposed to if it's
most
just a
definitely.
job, the going gets tough, you're gonna peace out and go to the next job because it's just a job.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
a
it's just a
job.
job. Nah, but I wanted to make, and I think the last question I just told her what makes a successful CRC. Just wanted to hear from her mouth. I can say everything on my mind, but I don't know truly. But you know, she's worked CRC. She worked all the way up to director and manager, so I knew she knew what the field is, and so she gave me her spiel about that. And so I will always remember that because she gave it was from her mouth, and so I just took it from there and just waited my time. Still watching your videos throughout because nothing is permanent. I was just always I had some other interviews and they would ask me certain similar questions. And one thing I would notice, because I feel like people are scared to get in these interview rooms, they're they might not actually ask you anything specific about being a CRC because they know on your resume you haven't been one.
Yeah,
So well, why would they ask me
I
that? Because
never
they know,
asked. I always hire people like you, Calvin, at my sites. I always hire people like who have potential, at least on paper. I think they have
yeah,
potential, but don't have experience because I have experienced staff. I don't want to bring an experienced coordinator from another site to my site because I don't know what kind of culture they were at. That's dangerous to me. To me, I rather hire someone with potential like Calvin and mold him into the coordinator that I need at the site, right? So
most definitely.
they're gonna ask you like attitude stuff, right? Like, and this is exactly
Attitude.
why that employer liked your question about which drugs made it to market from here. It shows your attitude, and obviously they like the fact that you're prepared and all that stuff too. So that's what matters, guys. This video, Calvin, this is gonna go viral because I'm gonna put. Let's get this one to be like the most watched video I
Hey, I
have.
really hope it is.
It's gonna be
I
hard
really
to
want to
beat
help
that
everybody.
5 hour one because everyone watches that, but like let's get it to
Yeah,
number two. Let's get this one at least to number two all time. You gotta like, comment, subscribe, share. Calvin literally showing you. Okay. People
I'm
people
trying
get tired of
to.
me telling, let's bring on people from Guru Nation who've done it. It's all about mindset. Nobody has experience. Here's a news flash
Yeah,
for you. Your first job in clinical research, everybody in this industry who's ever been in this industry was research naive at one point. Everybody.
yeah,
Everyone. 100%.
everyone.
So there's a variable there, and that variable is you and personal responsibility. And it's going to take, I think people underestimate the amount of work it takes, Calvin. I think
It
people
does.
think it's going to be easy, or as soon as it gets a little tough, they're done, they get discouraged. And with you, you didn't probably maybe because of your relative, maybe a little bit because of my videos, but I think a lot of it came internally from you knowing going through the MCATs. You know, you're not afraid of hard work. So you knew what kind of work, how competitive this is. Clinical research just as competitive as med school in a
It
way.
just is. They don't get paid that much to just be regular. You know, these are pretty competent people in their field for sure. It's all
Mm.
ran through the government. You know, you got to be very accurate with what you do.
So your goal, did they ever in the interviews ask you like what's your goal, like 5-year goal? I always ask this when I'm interviewing people.
Yeah. So they asked me my goal. I told her my goal is ultimately to climb the ladder within clinical research and end up as a clinical research associate, and start monitoring. And she kind of responded back to that. There's so many avenues to climb up in the company, which was great to hear from her. And it wasn't a thing where she was thinking I would want to leave anytime soon or anything. It was just a situation where she wanted to see that I would learn more in clinical research, and I wanted to actually make a career for myself and not just have a job in the time being. So I think it was a good answer in my opinion.
That's good. And you got your options open and you're going to be a generalist and kind of learn all aspects of this. I know it'll be fun to follow your career. That's why I hit the follow button right now because it's going to be fun to follow your career in
Most definitely.
2031 when we do, who knows, maybe our part 6. You'll be, who knows what's going to
I'll
be
be a
by then.
senior associate at that point,
We'll be
wherever I'll be.
podcasting from your AMG in
Oh man, big time. I hope so. I mean, that's the plan. Who knows where it'll lead me, but I think it will work out well now that I'm in. That's the biggest thing for everybody. If you can just get in, there's so much growth in this field. I wouldn't feel discouraged because I mean, I didn't. Even though I started applying, I didn't start getting anything for maybe 3 weeks. I ultimately I know when they saw my resume, they didn't see any clinical research. They ripped it up and threw it away. I know for 90% of the jobs, but that shouldn't discourage you. You should know that what you're doing is going to lead to something greater. If you have faith, believe in that. If you just have a will and drive, believe in that. Do what you need to do to get to that point, and it will work out for you. Or you can find different other ways. Like there is research assistant. I saw that job so many times. I actually got that. I got that. That was one of the offers that I got, but it was. I feel like a CRC role was a better role for me to really start
Of
things
course.
rolling in my life. You know, so
It's the
I went
best
and worked
starting
out.
point in my opinion, CRC, for sure. And that's where the
Yeah,
rubber meets the road. That's where all the action is. All this stuff that drug companies talk about, like remote trials, decentralized trials, all that depends on the sites. Can the sites, is this good for the sites? Is it good for the coordinator? Will they actually do it? Because that's where all the action is. It's not at the ivory tower with the drug companies, it's at the site level. It's with people like Calvin.
yeah, most definitely. And hearing that from you, I mean, that's great because you put out content. I'm Even now I got this job. I'm still watching your videos. The videos I haven't watched, I'm gonna watch every one just to make sure that I'm going in confident. And even when I'm in, I might still because you're always gonna put out content. It seems like. And I'm just gonna continue watching and learning more and more about the field because knowledge is everything, in my opinion. And if it is to you too, then maybe you should go about it maybe similar. But like I said, everything is geared towards how you go about it. And it could be slightly different, different variations. But if you have the end goal that's the same, go about it strong and really put your foot out there.
The variable is you, Calvin. Let's get this video. This is gonna go viral. I just got to come up with like a catchy title, and then it's
Clickbait.
game over. With enough time, game over. Calvin will have LinkedIn. Calvin's brand new LinkedIn. By the way, he did all this without LinkedIn, which is
Yeah,
impressive. He did all this without the route I say try to go like patient recruitment or try to get studies for the sites, but he didn't see all that is just the same thing Calvin did. You're
yeah,
just showing the employer that you're motivated and that you're passionate and that you're not going to quit. That's what doing all that stuff is. Because 90 out of 100 people who apply for a job are going to just do the status quo. They're going to
yeah,
do the norm. If you want ordinary results, you take ordinary action. I'm going to send a CV and a cover letter. That's it. If you want extraordinary results, you got to do extraordinary activities. That means when you're squatting in the gym, like Calvin, you're listening to
Okay.
podcast random musings from the clinical trial guru. You're listening to this episode right now. It's gonna make you want to do like 3 more curls
I'm
after you
telling
hear
you.
it. I
And that's
like
what
it,
I was
Calvin.
doing.
You're gonna do well, man. That's why I followed you right now. We got to get you on a clubhouse so you can talk more with other people, network, LinkedIn,
For sure.
and I'm definitely gonna have you come back maybe in 6 months, and then maybe every 6 months we'll just check in on each other and see if you want to come on, see how everything's going. And man, you're gonna do well in this industry, I can tell. And you're a great example and very relatable to a lot of people out
Thank
there
you.
watching. So hopefully you're gonna inspire a bunch of people with this podcast. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, man. Thank you for everything you're putting out. I really hope that I'm some type of motivation for anybody that's struggling, any pre-medical student. I know it's hard. It's very hard. I went through it. I know how it feels, but it's okay. There's some different avenues that you can do. Please just listen to this
You're
guy. Find just
motivating
something
me, man.
useful.
You're motivating me. I'm thinking of making another channel now. Like you're motivating me because you're doing extraordinary things to get the job. So keep that up. Don't lose that spirit because that's how you
Oh, for
become
sure.
generalist and that's how you gonna accomplish everything that you dream of. So thank you very much. Links underneath the show notes. Thank you everybody
Most
for
definitely.
watching, listening. Everybody go meet Calvin on social media and
Follow me.
tell
I'll
him
follow back.
congrats. He'll follow back, and we'll
Yeah.
catch y'all later. Bye bye.